topic is it,
at what point
should you, at what point should you put yourself first as a marriage couple over your children? At what point do you put yourself first as a married couple over your children? Because you know we always put our children first,
yes.
from birth to almost the time they get ready to get out of the house.
Even after
We're always we're always spending money on them. I mean, from clothes to hair to the barbershop to name brand stuff. We're always putting. Sometimes we're not spending money on ourselves to get name brand things for ourselves because we're spending it on our loved ones. So the mix, you know, it can be for nieces or nephews, you know, like people that you hold dear to you. And you know that at what point do you start putting yourself first and put them on the background? Because you know what they say, when they're grown and gone out of the house, you're stuck with each other. So you want to make sure that you have had some golden nuggets for that longevity, you know. Because if you don't have anything that you have invested, you know, if you haven't invested in each other while you were, you know, going through life, or lifing, as they say, you know, living life, then you could end up getting a divorce after your children are out of the house because you don't know each other. You could be living with a stranger. So at what point do you put yourself first and put the children on the background, you know?
Oh, goodness. So it's, I think it's situational, because, you know, I don't know. This is a hard topic because for the most part, as parents, we feel some type of obligation for our children. But I think it's good I think we have to be aware of when we now are living our life through our kids or for our kids. But I think when I think about it, I met you first. And my covenant was with my wife. Your covenant first is with your wife or your husband.
Right.
And so when children come along, that doesn't break the covenant.
Right. It shouldn't.
It shouldn't. But oftentimes it do because you start raising the kids. You start getting them on their way. At this moment, our children, I think they're at the point where we're trying to give them a jump start, a start in life. But all that energy that we're utilizing to give them a jump start in life, take care of your suppose. What is that? Take care of your spouse. That's what Jamal. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I would agree, at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, it began with your spouse, and at the end of the day, it's going to be your own. So I think
the sun should rise and set on your spouse.
Yes, yes. And so at all times, what I hear you saying, Mitchell, is that all times you ought to put your spouse first. And I think I know a lot of couples get caught up in that. Because we start focusing more on the responsibility of being a parent than the responsibility of being a husband and wife.
Right.
And so I think when you start having, or caregivers, not only a parent, but what if you have a relative, another relative that you are, who we saying?
Go ahead.
What if we have another relative who we're responsible for? And so I think what we ought to do, we ought to consider the fact that our spouse came first, and afterward it's going to be our spouse.
Right.
And so it's a very thin line. And so, you know, I think it's situational. I really do, because sometimes, well, you know what? When I'm taking care of my children, am I also alleviating you of the burden of having to deal with that situation?
I don't know, because when you think about that topic, at what point do you put yourself self first, you and your spouse?
And-
At
and
what point do
even-
you put your marriage 1st?
Mhm.
At what point do you put your marriage first over your children? So
Mhm.
if you're taking care of the children and your spouse wants some quality time, then I guess that's still putting your children first.
Right.
But if it's needed, then you know that means there's a conversation that needs to take place between you and your spouse, because
Mhm.
there's certain things that's gonna have to happen when the children are smaller. Then you have to give them a bath. Most of the time, it's the wife, the mom, giving the child a bath. Getting them ready for bedtime. Most of the time.
Mhm.
But we ain't gonna go back for. But we know the wife normally takes care of the home for the most part. Y'all know this.
Okay.
Y'all know that's
Here
true.
we go.
And so it's the wife that's taking care of the bath and
The
kind of
caregiving a little
the
bit more.
caregiving part.
nurturing,
Yeah, the
okay.
nurturing part.
All right.
But at what point you have your child needs to go to a recital or just
A
something.
concert and sports activities and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and so you look at things like that, and you need to make sure that you are definitely communicating those things. But other than that, at what point do you put yourself first? I mean, if the child is always saying that they need this and they need that, and you're constantly going, you constantly have sports, or you constantly have.
Thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you. You constantly have recitals for your child.
Mhm.
You constantly have, you just have all these things going on. But at what point do you?
At what point do you put a stop to it and say, you know what, my spouse is being neglected. I need to put our relationship 1st because as in previous conversation, whatever has your time has your attention, and so oftentimes, children and parents and other relatives get more attention than our spouses.
Right.
And so I think that when it comes down to putting your relationship first, I think that any decision that's made, you ought to consider, how is this going to impact my relationship with my spouse?
Yeah.
And if it's cutting into that time, then because before you know what the vows say something like forsaking all others, something to that effect. Doesn't the vow say forsaking all others? Therefore a man should leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, forsake somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes down to putting your spouse first, I think that that's the first and foremost of concerning anything, especially when you come into a marriage and you say we're in a covenant, we're in a relationship. Not if you're not even married. What if somebody's in a relationship? At what point do they put their relationship first before all other responsibilities?
Right.
I mean, whatever you give your time to, that's what's going to have your attention.
Yeah. I mean, but if you're focusing on the children.
Oh, you talking about children?
Yeah.
Child,
The question was. The question is and was, at what point do you put your marriage first
before your children?
Because children are gonna grow up and they're gonna leave the house, and you're gonna be there with each other, But at what point do you, do you teach them the importance of sacrifice, and maybe they may need to know how to sit back and wait on you all. Maybe the married couple, maybe you and your spouse want to go out on a date, and they want to go over a birthday party. Go to a birthday party. They want to go somewhere. They want you to take them somewhere. They want you to take them to a game. But you really want to go out on a date with your spouse. Do you give that up? And do you try to make it work where you're running all over town trying to drop them off at a football game or a basketball game, and then you got to go pick them up and take them out to eat, with their friends, like they just want to go hang out, but they're not old enough to drive. Do you give up the fact that you wanted to go out on spend some quality time with your spouse? At what point is enough? What do you all think? At what point is enough?
Listen, as y'all join us, this is Married Moment Tips with the Nobles, and our topic this evening over leftovers is at what point do a couple put themselves first over their children? If you're joining us, say something to us, tell us where you joining us from. What are your thoughts? What are y'all thoughts in terms of that? Those of you who have kids or those of you who are desiring kids, you know, at some point, you know, there's going to be a tug of war between parental responsibility and spousal responsibility. And I think that's the thin line, and that's what's got to be communicated in marriages. Because when children come along, and or when they're here, there is a time where the couple must make a decision whether or not to put their children first or put the couple first.
And there have been many times that I mean, we're guilty of that. There have been plenty of times where I wanted to maybe stay at home and just watch a movie, you know, with you, and my girls wanted to go to a game, and I wanted to make them happy, you know, and so because just being a pastor and the pastor's wife, they didn't get to go many places.
See, that's a whole other topic.
We didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, they didn't get to go many places. So when the opportunity arrived for them to be able to go to a public place, you know, like a game, then I sacrificed that because I wanted them to be able to go somewhere that was secure, somewhere that that I could trust, you know, the fact that they could actually go. And so I sacrificed our time, and I took them to the game. So should I have not done that, trying to please my children? You know, so that's my question. Yeah,
it's a balance because one thing about children, teenagers, whatever they're going to accept everything you give them. They don't understand no. They don't, you know, for the most part they won't understand it. So I think it's a balance. And a lot of relationships suffer because of this. Or you have one spouse being disgruntled. Then you have, especially you have a passive aggressive spouse, somebody passive aggressive, somebody that's quiet, but boiling over on the inside, and they always giving in. That can cause some dissension in the relationship. And one spouse is catering all to the children because they're putting the children first, and the other spouse wants the relationship to be put first. And a lot of marriages suffer because of that, because we feel like, okay, now that the children are here, all our energy and efforts need to go towards them. But that puts the relationship on the hold. And then when the children leave, I'm glad you brought that up. Now you don't forget about your spouse, and this person is a whole different person that you don't forget about.
And they will manipulate the situation.
Yes.
They will play the parents. They will play the parents against each other. And if you're not careful, you will fall into that trap. They'll go ask you a question. If you say no, then they run and ask, you know, the dad or the mom, you know, the other person a question. And if they say yes, you don't even know that has taken place. So they will play you against each other. So you just need to make sure that you are communicating with one another.
Yeah, this is a hot topic. They don't want to give their 2 cents on this. So then there's some things I believe that first need to happen. Number one, I think we agree that communication. The spouses need to be communicating, and this can be part of family planning.
Yes.
Just like we plan for marriage, have premarital counseling session. There needs to be a discussion in terms of planning for children, or planning for if you have to take care of another family member. At what point? I think that the couple have to be intentional. I think they ought to do a ratio for one thing, for one thing or attention we give our children, we ought to be giving a ratio of 1 to 3, for example. If we cater to the children, we put them first. Then for one, then I need to put my spouse first 3 times that month. You see what I'm saying? There's got to be a formula. that says that because the children gonna need us
Yeah.
and they're gonna need our guidance, and there are gonna be some things that they're gonna want to do that requires our approval.
Right.
So I think the couple have to be intentional, saying,